What's going on, family? What's going on? What's going down? Welcome to another episode of Nonfiction with Jonathan Soul. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the economy. It's something that's really been on my mind for the last couple of months. Talking with the little one, she said something that made me go on Google and do some searching. She said that most Americans on minimum wage can't afford an apartment in America. I'm like, what? What? And so, of course, the mind goes back 20 years ago, before times got better. I worked for a parcel service. I may have said this on another podcast. And at this particular parcel service, which I will not name, the most you could get was like 32 hours. But if you work 32 hours, you could get health benefits. And so that's why a lot of people work there. So most everybody there had two jobs. Okay. And so people work there 32 hours a week. And they would get health care. Sometimes they would get if you work there for a certain number of time. Hold on. This is why people don't want to go back into the office, because nobody does this. Nobody. The kids do this. Achoo! But I digress. So anyway, everybody had two jobs 20 years ago. Fast forward, times got better and the times fell off. I worked at a coffee house. Okay. So everybody at the coffee house had two jobs. Now, this time, I didn't understand why folk was working two jobs, because I really wasn't paying attention to the news, the economy back then. We're talking 10 years ago now, right? Yeah, I guess about 10 years ago. So then the other day, my daughter tells me, hey, so I look up the article. She was referring to an article that was in the Business Insider in 2020. Okay. The year from hell, 2020, the year from hell. Look at these little green circles in my eyes. It's kind of dope. And the greens from hell. Okay. This is July 16, 2020. Business Insider. The average minimum wage worker has to work more than two full-time jobs to afford a two-bedroom rental in any state in the U.S. And then it gives you the bullet points. The average minimum wage in the U.S. would need to work two jobs, according to the annual report from Outreach, the National Low-Income Housing Coalition. Minimum wage. The minimum wage to afford a two-bedroom rental in 2020 is $23.96 an hour. And $19.50 an hour for a one-bedroom rental. Now, let's put that in some context. I remember paying $1,300 for an apartment, okay, in my area. I don't know what the rent is in your area. $1,300. Now, of course, I got family that got mortgages that's $700, $800, $500, dependent. You know what I'm saying? So obviously, but the challenge is getting that initial down payment. The challenge is getting your credit to there are certain hoops that you got to jump through, even though you may have the income. And that's why a lot of people rent. Now, that's in a perfect scenario when you don't have any crisis. That's if you don't have a housing crisis like in 2007, 8, 9. That's if the .com bubble doesn't bust. You know what I mean? And was it 2020? Was it 2021 or something like that? That's if what was the other thing that happened? Of course, the pandemic is the recent one. So on a perfect day, people couldn't afford to get the money for the mortgage, so they got to rent. And so since the renting is the only alternative for them, then the landlords are going to charge what the market will bear. That's why people is working two jobs. This one lady at the coffee house I worked at, she had three jobs. She had two full-time jobs and a part-time job on Saturday. And so the only day she had to rest was Sunday. Now, back then, I thought it's because she had 5 kids, which she did. But now I see it's because these jobs not paying shit. Now, some people might say, well, It's not right to be on the dole and man, fuck that. You paid taxes into that. I used to believe that bullshit. There was a time when I refused to take unemployment when I was younger in my 20s. I refused to take it because it was pride. I felt ashamed that I'm a working man, this, that, and the third. And I said, wait a minute. You paid in, that's your money. You paid into it. I walked down to their office, happened to be my neighborhood, sat in the office, got my number, sat in the hall with a whole bunch of other people. The lady talked to me like I was a object or whatever. Yes, and here's a number, call in, punch it in, and boom. I did that. And I was like, this is easy. This is a lot easier than before. Conversely, I'm at the bus stop the other day. And this happened last week. It was a brother there. He's probably in his 40s. And I must have a sign on my forehead that says, tell me your life story. I've been trying to scrub it off. This guy was telling me, man, it just don't feel right, man. You know what I mean? I'm on this unemployment, man. It just don't feel right. I want to work. I was like, wow. You know what I mean? But the media is going to paint black men as lazy, and it's like, fuck them. They're the enemy anyway. We know that there's the majority of us, of men in general, want to work. Man, it just don't feel right, man. You know what I mean? I just, call or whatever, and they put it in my account, but I want to get a job. Now, he's going to a position, because we were both waiting for the bus at this point. And so I feel like there's a tension building up where people do want to work. But if the minimum wage job doesn't pay enough for you to live indoors, then what you supposed to do if unemployment with this extra that they gave is helping you do that? You would be insane to turn down that bread while it lasts, because I think it's going to end end of June, something like that. It's going to end soon. There's an ending thing that's happening July 30th. It's either the end of the enhanced unemployment or it's the end of the CDC initiated moratorium on evictions. That's what it is. 52-year-old brain. I think that's supposed to end June the 30th. So I'm reading an article yesterday where it's talking about, man, we're concerned that there's going to be this, eviction apocalypse the end of July when people is going to get kicked out of their homes in a massive level. So why am I bringing all this up? I'm bringing this up because the politicians got us talking about bullshit. They got us talking about this group that's all of a sudden oppressed, and this other group that needs a bill. Never mind black people, but this group, this manufactured victim group, and we're concerned about this foreign policy and that foreign policy and this, that, and the third. And it's like, the infrastructure is falling apart. The house is starting to get on fire. If it was me, I would cut foreign aid to everybody immediately. And I'll put every American citizen, I will get every American citizen some guaranteed income and get them either employment or training. If you end all, and you're going to say, oh my God, that's horrible. Yo, man, you can't feed nobody till you feed yourself. I went to a therapist one time. None of their business why. The therapist told me? He was like, Jonathan, you can't help nobody to help yourself. In the wild, the lion eat first. And what he meant was before the little babies eat and before the lion is eating whatever, the lion eat first. Now, I know that the lioness actually hunt the thing, but he didn't know that, but it doesn't take away from the point. The point is that you got to take care of home first before you take care of anybody else. I would cut all foreign aid immediately. As Viper on YouTube says, that Apple guy, he says immediately I'll cut it all off, and I'll use that money to repair all the bridges in America. I'll use that money to fix all the dams, all the roads, all the potholes. I would, you know how Kennedy, he had this thing about going to the moon and getting everybody sized up and everything. And it was a great kind of galvanizing idea. If I was an 80-year-old president, I would have something like that, something that actually put money. Because see, let me tell you something. The brother told me this a long time ago. He said, if you're not talking about putting money in black people's pocket, putting the roof over their head and providing them with safety, you're not talking about shit. So anytime I engage with somebody and they talking about a Democrat or Republican, I know they not hip. I know they just a serf spitting out the landlord talking points. You can't tell me about foreign policy and gender and immigration. If Americans can't eat, what the fuck? What are you talking? You ain't talking about nothing. You're not talking about nothing. If you're not talking about putting money in people's pocket, black people first. But if you ain't talking about putting money in Americans' pockets, you're not talking about shit. Everything else is a distraction. Everything else is some kind of emotional, psychological play to get me to put another wealthy person in a position of power to get wealthier. That's all you're talking about. You know, folk might say, well, black people did this, and why did they vote for these guys? The only people, it's only a few people that's benefiting from these politicians. And we see who they are in the last few years. The folks that's getting this legislation passed for them, those are people that's benefiting. And then, of course, the people behind the scenes who get the permanent tax cuts. But if you have to work for a living, you're poor. Let me tell you. I remember this radio program I heard where they were saying Margaret Thatcher was having a problem with her group, and I don't know if it was the Tories or whatever. I don't know that details, but she basically said she's having problems because she's in a country where everybody thinks they're middle class. Most of us are not middle class. If you make $100,000 a year, I don't believe you're middle class, in my opinion. Why? Because you got to work for that $100,000 a year. You know what I mean? But the class distinction doesn't make a difference, because at the end of the day, if I got $100,000 and my neighbor is hungry, then I'm not safe. And me getting safe is necessarily buying a gun, is making sure that he get fed. Because if he got $100,000 and I'm hungry, he's not safe. What I'm supposed to do? Just be a law-abiding citizen and starve to death? That's stupid. That's foolish. That's against nature. If a creature is hungry in nature, nature's going to try to make a way for that creature to get food. That's just the way it is. And you can't legislate that out. People trying to legislate the laws of nature out of existence. But you can't. Nature doesn't adhere to, nature don't vote Democrat. So, according to this article, the report was published in this is coming in 2020. This is July. So we just starting to realize, oh shit, we in trouble. You know what I'm saying? We just starting to realize this. I think it was in July, was it 100,000 or 200,000 people? You know what I mean? We wasn't, was dying from the corona. We still wasn't clear, absolutely clear. January, February, March. Okay, March, everything hit. June, July. Okay, I guess we knew. Let's see. The report was published amid unprecedented health crisis, the economic impact, which has left millions of Americans without a job. This is from the Business Insider report. The researchers behind the report called on their federal government to take action to secure affordable homes by funding federal rental programs, especially amid corona pandemic. Now, some of y'all may have heard of a program called Section 8. Section 8, gives you a voucher for your rent. So let's say I'm a homeowner and I have a place I want to rent. Let's say I want to rent it for $2,000, let's just say. Section 8 may pay $1,500. Section 8 may pay $1,700, and then the person on a Section 8 has to pay the remainder. It's always a smaller amount kind of a thing. And of course, the social services has education programs, and they have food stamp, they have everything to keep you out of the gutter kind of a thing. So that's what this report is calling for. Now, I want y'all to do a little social experiment if you can. Go to Google or better yet, go to your state, like your state government, and see if you can search for jobs that relate to social services. And what I mean by that, when you want to apply for Section 8 or food stamps or Medicare, Medicaid, you have to go to the social welfare office, right? Well, we know that about 10 million people lost their jobs in 2020. So you would have thought that the social services part of the government would have totally hired a whole bunch of new people in order to accommodate. I bet you guarantee you that you won't find no spike in hiring. You won't, because the government wants to remain small in certain ways and big in other ways. Big in ways that really don't benefit the common man. All right, so so just keep that in mind, that the whole point of this particular section is that in order for you to afford an apartment, if you're on minimum wage, if you're in the service industry, if you do hotels, if you work in a restaurant, if you're in sales, if you work at the retailer store, even if you're in the computer department, that's still that retail vibration. Unless you're making over 20 grand, you're going to need a roommate. And that's hard for an adult ego to take. But the people at the top, the politicians at the top, they're not feeling that. That's not something that they want to put in their agenda, their headline, because it's not sexy. They want us to talk about emotional topics that get people to attack each other, make the other person feel like they're on a moral high ground. In one group, they'll say empowerment and community, and the other group, they'll say states' rights and patriot. You know what I mean? It's game. It's game. But you spit the game to the white people one way, you spit the game to the black people another way, the Spanish people, the Asians. You know what I mean? And but it's all game. It's all game. We have to realize that it's all game. I think that voting local is more important than voting national, because the national people already got their agenda. But the fascists that I see getting into politics, the Nazis, not the real Nazis, they win in local elections. All right, let's go. Something that's interesting that may kind of blow your mind, I guess, a little bit. Any of y'all watch anime? You say, God damn, that's a hard turn. I know, man. I got to bring it up. Make myself depressed. Any of y'all watch anime? My favorite anime, I got a lot of favorites. One of my favorite anime is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. The first one was okay. It was decent. It was dope. It had the best music, I think. But the second one, Brotherhood, it was strong. It was really strong. And there was one story arc in there where it was a alchemist who used his abilities to make chimeras. What's a chimera, you ask? A chimera is a half human, half animal hybrid. Damn, I ain't got nothing to drink over here. Have animal hybrid. Would you believe that they got legislation in the United States Senate right now voting on whether or not to fund human animal chimera funding? You're like, man, that's some. So this is out of Forbes, because if I tell you the Fox article, half of y'all gonna drop off. But I heard about it first on Fox. I group news outlets into two categories too. One is the Union and one is the Confederate. That's the way I see it. My opinion, I could be wrong. To quote, what was that dude's name? Oh shit, Dennis, whatever his name was. So the Union, those are the people that may be considered liberal. Those folks are decent on domestic policy in some regards, in terms of like the environment, funding for schools, but less so nowadays. That might be an old vibration. And then the Confederate, those are the people that's good on spending as far as like what the military is doing. And the Union is good on like the police and all that kind of the violations and that kind of shit. And then the Union, the Confederates are good with foreign policy, more on the protectionist vibe, gun rights. What else? Some things. It's just, the way you say, well, where's the Mason-Dixon, right? The Mason-Dixon is how they cover the poor. That's the Mason-Dixon. That's how they cover the poor. One side sees the poor as a prop for them to use to get their agenda over. The other one sees the poor as people who did it to themselves and fuck them, lock them up. That's where the line is drawn. So you can tell that I'm not saying any one side is good or bad, but the American media, that's where it is. Now, if I want to get news about the American government, how they behaving, you got to go outside the country. You got to go to, with a whole lot of salt, Russia Today. You got to go to Press TV. You got to go to Telesur English. 10 years ago, you could have went to Al Jazeera. They fell off. Even the BBC. You know what I mean? Like the UK papers. If you want to know what's going on with the government. As a matter of fact, it wasn't the Mirror. It was the Independent or whatever, the UK paper that did a 2-year study on police murdering people. And they did a whole bunch of research, and some of it was crowdsourced and some of it was reporting. And they broke it down by ethnicity and the age and the whole bit. And it was crazy. It's like, I think it was 2014, 15, something like that. And they stopped. They stopped after a while. I don't know, for mental health or reasons or whatever. But it was a big deal. It was a big deal. What I remember was African Americans were being murdered at this high percentage. And then, Native Americans being murdered. Spanish and white people were being murdered at the same rate. But generally speaking, when a white person got murdered, it was because they had a gun and they wouldn't put it down. Everybody else got murdered unarmed. So anyway, you're not going to find that, because I don't think that the FBI, I don't want to put no name. Let's just say, I'm not sure of any government agency that is requiring those kind of statistics to be kept, because I feel like the medical institutions are capturing people dying, but they're not capturing why. They're not tagging them. Police put his knee on the back of the man's neck with his full body weight and suffocated him to death. They're not going to tell you that. They're just going to say he died, kind of a thing. So for us to see a deeper understanding of our government, we have to go outside. And I'm sure in other countries the same way. Okay. So, well, that hell of a long soliloquy. This came out, let's see, Forbes, May 27th, 2021. So just last month. Okay. Senate Thursday voted on party lines to kill a Republican amendment banning experiments in certain types of human animal chimeras, which scientists use to further medical research over ethical concerns. Amendment was posed by Mike Braun, failed with 48 Democrats voting for it. Let's see, Democrats 49. Amendment defines human animal chimera as various combinations of human non-human DNA, such as human embryo, into which non-human cells have been introduced, making the species of the embryo uncertain. Another definition, the amendment would have imposed a 10-year imprisonment or at least $1 million fine on both, or even attempting to create a human-animal chimera. Scientists have spent, this is the key thing, which is interesting. Scientists have spent decades creating chimeras to improve the drug testing and boost organ transplant research, even within the scientific community. But even within the scientific community, debates rage about relative humanity of chimeras and whether they're ethical. So the name of the article is Senate Kills GOP Legislation to Prohibit Certain Human-Animal Chimeras. And I put the link in the description of this video. So here's a philosophical question for you. It's related to this. If they clone a human, right? Let's just say tomorrow we find out that, I don't know, Acme is cloning humans. And somebody says, hey, that was a human. That person is not the property of the company. They're human. They deserve human rights. Most people would probably be okay with that. Now, what if it was a chimera? What if it looked human, but had a certain percentage of animal protein or whatever, animal components in it? Like, if it looked human, but it had animal components that were not detectable to the human eye, most people would say that person is human. But if something visibly was different, maybe the guy had claws or, pointy ears or something, people might. I just wonder if in our lifetime we're gonna have to ask the question, how human is human? You know what I mean? And do these, what if they escape the lab or something? Do they are they a refugee now? Or are we going to help them? Is there going to be an underground railroad for chimeras? You know what I mean? Because the problem with this stuff is that a lot of times it's the military behind these experiments. Y'all heard of DARPA, and DARPA was not mentioned in this article to my knowledge, but I wouldn't put it past them. DARPA is a research laboratory that has a military connection, and the military make weapons. So I'm just wondering if some point in the future we're going to have to contend with, wow, that police officer looks different. Wow, that soldier looks different. You know what I mean? Kind of a thing. It's like, I'm not saying it's going to be like the clones in Star Wars where all the police officers look alike. I'm not going to say it's like that. You know what I mean? But I just wonder if we're ever going to have to, as a society, as a human culture, deal with that, because China is way ahead. And that's what the Fox News article talked about. China is way ahead of us in terms of that kind of research. But do we need to be going there? I don't think that the human being is ready for that. Going in space, everything, yeah, sure. But just like we weren't ready for nuclear weapons, I don't think we're ready for this. I really don't. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up because I've been talking a long time. And, oh shit, I've been talking for half an hour? Ooh-wee. All right, let me wrap this up. There's one thing I did want to share. Just be careful. Okay, remember when I said that if you work and you're not middle class? I think the middle class are the people who are like the business owners and like the lawmakers. So if you run a small business of 100 people or more, to me, that's the middle class. It's not the people that are working for you. You know what I mean? And so the middle class is the class between the wealthy and the poor, right? And if you got to work, if you're one of these 10 million people that had to file for unemployment, or if you was one of the 200 million that was afraid you was going to have to, you poor. And it's not a moral thing. It's just the way capitalism is set up. Capitalism is set up. It's a system of exploitation, period. And most of us won't be capitalists. I mean, some of us are in some small ways. I got a little book out, Malcolm Mars, on Amazon, by Jonathan Soul, a little sci-fi novel. I think I sold 6 one year. Let's get that number up. But most of us, we just want to have a gig, take care of our families, have a little hobby. You know what I mean? And then have a comfortable retirement, raise our kids. That's most of us. But that's a challenge to do under capitalism. So what I'm trying to say is be careful when you look at the news and they're creating one group and then they're targeting another group. Okay, the black people are attacking the Asians now. I was like, well, when did this happen? While I'm eating my Chinese food, when did this happen? You know what I mean? The black people are anti-gay. When did this happen? My choir director for years, what I mean? It's like, what I mean? They inventing groups and well, we had to kill this general over there, Trump. We had to kill this general. But he was on Time Magazine the other year saying this guy was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Well, we had to kill him. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, we have to bomb Iran. It's like, whoa! Iran is fucking 2,000 years old. They ain't never invaded nobody. Why are you fucking with them? But while we think about all these issues, folk can't afford an apartment.